him to go back home, especially when it's peace.
MI5 don't make public statements, so they won't respond directly to the accusations levelled against them in this programme. However, they do say that Al-Qaeda inspired terrorism, Britain's national security. They also specifically deny targeting Muslims, arguing that Muslims themselves are victims of Al-Qaeda inspired. Seen from the British government's and the security services' point of view, British Muslims are the most susceptible to the kind of ideology which saw 52 people killed on July the 7th, 2005 in London. The kind of ideology which thirsts for revenge for Britain's invasions of 2 Muslim countries in the last decade, and its dictators in the Muslim world as well as for Israel. More recently, the killing of a British soldier in South London in May 2013 posed serious questions about the ideology of British Muslims who try to travel to Somalia, as the chief suspect allegedly did. But Michael Adebolajo also had contact with the security services, indicating that those who attempt to travel to Somalia are closely watched and perhaps also recruited.
There is absolutely no justification for these acts, and the fault for them lies solely and purely with the sickening individuals who carried out this appalling attack.
Well, let's be clear what the responsibilities of the security service are. They are to counter terrorism. There are several other responsibilities. Their task is to identify potential suspects, and then when there is sufficient evidence, to place them under surveillance, and ultimately to save lives. It's not just saving lives in the United Kingdom or elsewhere, it's saving Muslim lives as well.
MI5 clearly believes that Britain faces a growing threat of terrorist attacks from UK residents trained in Somalia, a failed state where Al-Qaeda affiliated groups have the space to thrive. They estimate that over 100 British residents are training in Al-Shabaab camps to fight the Western and African Union-backed governments. But MI5 is concerned that it's only a matter of time before these highly trained fighters come back home to attack British interests. And it wants to act before this happens rather than after an attack takes place. During the course of this documentary, I've had quite a few problems penetrating the Somali community, despite the fact that I'm a Muslim myself and I've got a track record of making sympathetic films about Muslim communities in the UK. There seems to be quite a lot of concern and distrust about the way that Somalis are portrayed in the media, and there also seems to be quite a lot of fear of speaking out, because if you do that, you might be targeted. For all the Somalis that agreed to appear on camera for this documentary, many more refused because they feared being targeted. Yet off the record, they all confirmed that the community feels harassed and intimidated, and that can only store up problems for the future.
Once you come camera and you said, I'm going to talk about terrorism, they will say no. If this can get me into trouble, if I say anything, the police may come to my house. Who said, we know what you say. I don't think that's a good idea for the Somali community. I think they should come forward and speak up. But I can understand their concerns. I can understand how afraid they are.
The feedback you receive from people who've been victims or people who had interaction with the police or the security services, it's certainly that what we can say is that this is not helping the social cohesion agenda at all.
There's also a sense of frustration that the authorities just aren't listening to the Somali community's concerns, and that is why some members of the community are finally going public. Their reasoning is that the softly approach has failed, so now it's time to speak out. Do you think there's anything wrong with them trying to get spies in the community?
In fact, that has to come within the person. It has to be your own will, whether you want to work for them or not. That's not the way to approach or recruit people.
I mean, if a young Somali was approached by the security services and didn't want to talk to them, what advice would you give to that young Somali?
I'd say, look, contact a lawyer. There are many lawyers in this field who will give advice. There's an organisation that I advise called Cage Prisoners. We deal with these situations. But certainly do not deal with them on your own. And also, if you feel we're constantly harassed, there are avenues of complaint available.
I spent the last few months with the Somali community in the UK, and I've been researching their relationship with the British state. And my impression is that it's a long way from the Al-Shabaab stereotype that some commentators like to portray. Yes, they do suffer from the same kind of problems that deprived immigrant communities in Britain suffer from, such as low